to my thoughts on The Walking Dead Season 2, Episode 11. This episode is called Judge Judy and Executioner. Another episode I love. Spoilers for every episode leading up to and including this one. The episode is rated TV-14, so will this video be. Let's dive right in. So, yeah, Greg Nicotero directed this episode. Apparently the first... literally every single new thing I learn about Greg Nicotero makes me admire him even more. This was a phenomenal directorial debut. Like, I knew he was amazing at practical effects. And zombie acting, evidently, but just wow. Holy crap, there's so many people who've worked in the industry who... Like, it's not necessarily that they, like, completely botch their directorial debut, but they certainly don't, like, completely knock it out the park. And that's not any kind of diss on those people, because directing is extremely difficult. So, just, yeah, he did phenomenal here. According to IMDb Trivia, he took it, like, he watched 12 Angry Men, like, the original, I hear... There's apparently like a remake that's terrible. Yeah, that's... I don't know why they felt the need to remake it at all. Anyway, the original is amazing, and yeah, I see it. Like the big debate near the end of the episode, where they're going over the various points of view of whether or not to kill. Yeah, obviously, okay, so I'm obviously not saying that it's quite as strong as that movie, but that's not at all a fair standard to hold to, and it is very, in spirit, and yeah, it is a really, really strong scene, strong episode in general. Okay, so, yeah, right, the kid, formerly known as Spike Boy, is apparently named Randall. And the first thing we see, if I recall, is Daryl beating up Randall. Perhaps frustrated that their names are relatively similar. And I don't know, I haven't watched any episode past this one yet. I don't know if what Randall says is going to be confirmed, or if it's going to be disproven, or neither, perhaps. But I do really appreciate that in this episode, we actually don't know, because for a while, he insists that he won't give very much information. And then when he starts talking, what he says does sound like he might just be saying what he thinks Daryl wants to hear, because that is something that has been thoroughly demonstrated in research. Torture, a lot of the time, just gets the people being tortured to admit to whatever they think the person torturing them wants to hear. No matter how terrible the thing is, they'll admit to it because they just want the torture to stop. Now, it is not that there has never ever been, someone telling the truth from torture, but it is not a reliable method for getting to the truth. There are other methods that are far more reliable. And what we see in this episode is that's, as happens a lot in real life, they don't really sympathize and empathize very much with Randall, so they don't even really consider those ways. Because, like, let's see, I want to say it was World War II, when the Allied forces caught a Nazi and wanted information, they would, like, give them a good meal. And I'm not 100% sure if it always worked, but certainly there were times where it absolutely worked, because at the end of the day, these Nazis were told, you're like, it's with us or against us, so the moment they're treated with decency, sometimes much better than they were being treated, yeah, they actually they're like, oh, these are my friends, I can trust them. And a lot of Nazis, did a lot of soldiers did want the war to end. Nazi soldiers, I mean, it never even occurs to them. I mean, we know they know how to cook. It's like, I'm not saying that they have like infinite food, but there's also only one of him. One hot meal. So yeah. Let's see. I think I'm going to just briefly talk about, yeah, the thing with Carl. I thought they did a fantastic job throughout this episode of just sprinkling in these little things. He disobeys but doesn't want to get in trouble, and people. I get the sense that I feel like there's two things going on. On the one hand, he's being a normal kid his age. He's curious when he's approaching Randall. He's essentially playing, for a lot of the time, dealing with the walker, the one that's not giving anybody any lip. And he wants to be seen as an adult. He's trying to grow up too fast because of the circumstances. The situation is so dire. And the fact that he finds the handgun, which, like, the moment that you see him go through Daryl's stuff, we're like, he's gonna find something awful in there, and yeah, and then he goes out and finds a walker, realizes, oh, it's stuck, which, it's one of those things, like, he doesn't quite yet have the experience. I feel like there's a lot of adults who in that circumstance would say, yeah, the fact that it's safe-ish now doesn't mean it's gonna be forever. It's not dead, or it's undead right now. It hasn't had the head destroyed, the brain destroyed. So yeah, let he who is without sin cast the first stone. So I don't know if I can argue that much with his right to throw the stones, but it is, he is playing with fire. And yeah, it ends up, the walker keeps trying to pull its foot out of the mud, eventually succeeds. And yeah, Carl runs off scared, obviously. Now, I want to make it clear before I say anything more, I am not saying that he is to blame for Dale dying. I understand that some people might say that, and I respect their right to do so. I don't know. Right now, I feel like I don't want to go there personally. But I do really appreciate the decent, and yeah, but by the end of the episode, he realizes, oh, that was the walker I was supposed, or yeah, not supposed to, but I found it, it got loose, and, now it killed Dale. The thing is, I 100% don't blame Carl for not, like, he tried to get the gun, but he ends up running away scared, of course, because he's a kid, and this is a life or death situation. But he could have told someone. He could have said, I know I shouldn't have, and I'm sorry, but I just want you to know there is a walker, not too far from here, yeah, walking, and yeah, if he had said, I walked in that direction, there's a walker there, someone could have gone, wouldn't even necessarily have to be gunfire. They could probably handle it. Like, send Daryl, That would also be a way for him to get his gun back. But yeah, I think that does cover... Yeah, so everything else in the episode is indeed about the... Oh, right, just briefly. Yeah, before I get back to the discussion. The fact that Shane and Andrea are discussing right outside Randall, like, I mean, Shane knows, or right, Andrea knows, because she, she could tell that Randall could tell she was right there. Yeah, I don't know. Is it not a big enough farm that they can't find even one other place? I'm just saying, don't scheme in hallways. I mean, in front of the prisoner. But yeah, it's understandable that Randall is really worried. And let's see. I will say, the part about the rape of the teenagers, I think that is true. I don't think he would make that up. But I don't know if it remains to be seen at this point in the show. If there really are 30 guys out there and they've got like heavy duty weaponry and all this stuff. So, yeah. Let's see. And it's one of those things like they could easily like a lesser show would have, as soon as he says, "Oh, they've got like big guns," it would have cut to the camp, and we see, oh yeah, there's got to be like 30 of them, and we see them like loading a machine gun, and someone walks up holding a map and says, "I think I know where they are," or something, something like that. And the fact that it's that the show doesn't do that, like it genuinely might just be this small group, you know, yeah, and this thing of there are women and children too. Yeah, that does bring us to yeah. So with Carl, yeah, this thing of him, yeah, had a little bit more about him. The thing about how he wanted to watch, and he's like, "You're right, Dad, do it," and yeah, understandably that makes Rick really hesitate. And the thing with Sophia's not in heaven, there is no heaven. Like, holy crap. Is this like the amazing atheist at age 10? Like, damn. But yeah, Rick does a good job parenting and saying, think, don't talk. And Carl's like, I thought Mom said that you should think less and talk more. Don't change the subject. He's getting a real smart mouth, that kid. But yeah, he's right. Find a way to make it up to her. This is not the time to get off on the anti-theist thing. Like, whether or not there is a heaven, do not tell a grieving mother that. And yeah. Let's see. Right, and I really like the thing with Carol and Lori. This thing of, because I don't think that Lori was purposefully, like, I don't get the sense that she was saying this doesn't really matter. I understand why Carol felt that way, and it's this thing of like Carol is essentially all the frustration she feels from how she's being treated by everyone, is thrown at Lori. But I agree that Lori could have chosen her words better. But what I got out of what she, like, both what she said and her reaction to Carol, it didn't seem like she was, like, caught doing something wrong, to me at least, so much as she was like, oh, I didn't realize we were treating you badly, I think Lori was trying to say, we will deal with it. Don't worry. We'll talk to Carl. But it does come across as, stop getting all emotional about this. So yeah, very nicely done. And Carol, her pointing out, you either, let's see, avoid me or condescend to me. And I really appreciate that point made. I love when a piece of media does a good job exploring grief. It's I've said this a number of times before. Grief is one of those things. Everybody's going to experience it at some point in their lives. You're going to grieve a family member, a friend, maybe a pet. Regardless, you are going to end up grieving someone, so it's important that we have media that explores grief in a healthy way, a constructive way. But unfortunately, it is still taboo, and that's what's going on with Carol. Like, essentially, like the fact that they're like avoiding her. Like, we've spent some time with these, the main survivors, Rick's group. I would definitely say, now that Ed is gone, Ed's dead, baby. Ed's dead. There isn't a single one of them who genuinely just doesn't care, or okay, to be fair, I'm not saying that Ed didn't care about Sophia, but he was not the most sensitive, person. I definitely think that they are avoiding her because they're terrified of accidentally saying the wrong thing to her. And that doesn't actually really help a person grieve. Community can be a major part of successfully grieving, because you can feel very alone when you're grieving, and other people avoiding you because they're worried they'll say the wrong thing doesn't really help. Obviously saying the wrong thing doesn't help either, but there's a healthy middle ground. I think that is what I wanted to say. Yeah, Randall trying to appeal to Carl is also really, because again, like, it is this thing of like, is he a bad guy? Is he, like, because on the one hand, like, I can't rule out that, like, if Carl got much closer, that Randall would have, like, grabbed him and, like, threatened him and told the others, you better let me go or I'll kill the kid or something like that. But on the other hand, he's chained to a wall, and hearing two people talk about how they're definitely gonna kill him, you can understand why. Yeah, it's very, very nicely done, because, like, yeah, obviously, he's like, oh, you're Rick's son. Rick is a good man, and and technically what he says is true. Rick was going to let me go. It was Shane who convinced him otherwise, and yeah. Let's see. And it's, again, like, they could so easily have, like, ruined it by, like, imagine if Randall had said, I have some candy in my pocket, maybe you'd like, you can just come and take it out in my pocket yourself. You don't even have to like, then we'd have been like, okay, F this guy, he's definitely, a terrible person. But what he said wasn't really, like, hugely out of line. He's clearly not trying to scare the kid. He just wants to be let go, and that doesn't mean that if he's let go, he's gonna hurt anyone. He might just be trying to escape execution. And that is one thing I really love about this episode. It really would be an execution if they had gone through with it. Rick has never gotten this close to killing someone that absolutely did not, like, let's see. Dale and Tony, he had no choice. They drew on him. It was essentially like a duel, a quick draw. If he hadn't fired, they would have killed them. And that would have left Carl without his biological father. Maggie would have lost Glenn. Herschel's entire family would have lost him, He had no choice, and he tried to avoid any further violence after killing the two of them in self-defense. But as it's even pointed out, I think, by Dale, killing Randall is not going to prevent the 30 men from finding us here. Those two things have nothing to do with each other. Like, it's not like they have a tracker hidden on him or something, and the longer he's alive, the greater the chance that they'll be able to find us. No, like, there's absolutely no, yeah. Let's see, I think that does bring us, yeah. I feel like the major theme here, and right, yes. So throughout the show so far, there has been this theme of how much can the survivors do, how much should they do to try to maintain civilization, you know, try or keep the spirit of you know, yeah, justice alive and goodness. You know, how much can you do that without risking death? You know, it is survival of the fittest versus keeping the human soul alive into, you know, like we don't know yet if there'll ever be a post apocalypse, if they'll be able to deal with enough of the walkers that they can form society again. But even if they can't, like, you know, yeah, Dale comes right out and says, I don't want to live like this. I can't do this, you know. And again, it's completely consistent with his character. You know, he is very much an idealist. I relate a lot to him. Like, if I were a character on this show, as much as I'd like to say, I'd be like Rick, I would probably be Glenn and or Dale. I'd be Glendale. And yeah, you know, it's the theme has been brought up over the course of the show up to this point. This is when it is at its most intense, because this would be the greatest injustice that they've caused. You know, there have been other situations where they almost killed someone and you can kind of see how it was justified. You know, the carers, before they realized those were carers, they were like, oh, this is a gang, these are dangerous, and they had guns too. That was not in question. You know, there could have, you know, if we almost got to the point where there was a firefight, but they managed to avoid that, and, you know, now they're dealing with this situation of, yeah, you know, this would be just an actual execution. Now, the title is genuinely perfect for this episode. And it does kind of bring up, you know, is justice and morality constant? Is it a right? Is it inherent to human beings once we get to a certain stage in development, perhaps? Or is it a privilege? Perhaps even a luxury? And there is this thing of, like, are they willing to give up their humanity and, like, this, you know, this living individual's rights for safety and security, you know? And I really appreciate that, like, yeah, you know, you have people saying, no, he's dangerous, we have to take him out. You have Dale and not very many others saying, you know, this is not right. And he, you know, it's true. It is not the ethical thing to do. And then we have some people who just don't get involved. And Dale has some very harsh words for them, which I do appreciate Rick saying, okay, that's enough, you know. And yeah, like, it felt very real. Like, this is the kind of thing that you could have this scene without a zombie apocalypse. After all, you know, 12 Angry Men, not set during the zombie apocalypse. I'm not saying that I wouldn't watch, like, a remake that was 12 Angry Zombie Killers, but yeah, I really appreciated this whole exploration of it. And again, like, it doesn't really come down and say that Dale is right or that the other side is right. You know, really strong points are made on both sides, because yeah, like, at the end of the day, if they keep him around and, like, force him to do some work, like, what if they turn their back on him, he escapes, and then brings back, you know, that, yeah, it really is the you know, like, right, to be clear, I really, you know, not everybody watches all of my videos. I doubt any one person has watched every single one of my videos. If so, gold star, 100%. Really appreciate that. But the right, where was I going with that? I am 100% against the death penalty. I do not believe that there is any circumstance under which someone should be, put to death. I do believe in life in, see, I am a prison abolitionist. I do agree that there are people that we have to be careful that they aren't able to do a terrible thing again. And, obviously if you see them planning it, that's fine to stop. I do not believe in, like, pre-crime, thought crime kind of thing of saying, oh, this person, maybe, I don't know, I get a bad feeling about it. I think they might be... No. If you cannot prove that they were planning to do something, then they're not guilty of, the thing. Like, for sure, like, if you think, okay, this person, I feel like they got some bad ideas in their heads, man. Therapy, community, like, try to help them deal with those thoughts, but don't, like, imprison them for thoughts they maybe have or something. But yeah, let's see. I am willing to acknowledge that, there are circumstances where one can understand wanting to, yeah. I am, if I were in this episode, I would be Dale or agree with Dale. Now, let's see. Right, Herschel giving the watch, very sweet, and I like the thing, take it before I change my mind, and the line. The thing is, no man is ever good enough for your daughter until one is. That is very, very sweet. And yeah, like, he's come a long way. Like, at first he really didn't warm up to Glenn right away, but yeah, at this point. And I really liked, before he started referring to him as Glenn, I don't know if I really want to repeat, but he, let's go with, he referred to him by not nationality, ethnicity, At the time, I was like, that's rubbing me the wrong way. But he does say in this episode, he asks, where are your parents from? And I like the, Michigan, and before that, Korea. And Herschel says, immigrants built this country, never forget that. And that's such a beautiful thing. I wish every, I was going to say American, but really, like, any country where, like, immigration was a major, element of, like, I'm not saying it's 100%, like, I don't think I know enough about all of world history. I'm sure there are places where even today there are some places where they sometimes it goes wrong. Sometimes, someone comes into the country that, does something terrible. But if you look at the numbers, like, such a huge percentage of immigrants to so many countries, they are a boon, not a bane, to the country. And yeah, really appreciate that acknowledged here. And yeah, it's this thing of, like, he wasn't actually saying, he was never saying, someone East Asian isn't good enough for my daughter. He was basically, like, he wasn't really, if I understand correctly, he wasn't really judging Glenn for not being white. He was just acknowledging, well, I mean, he isn't white. Not as a bad thing, but just, like, it really was just a descriptor. And it's the kind of thing, like, on some of us younger generations, it can sound like, kind of going down a bad path there. But he really wasn't thinking of it like that. And I know people, I've met people Herschel's age and thereabouts who will also say, oh, is that person Jewish? Like, and they won't mean, I hope they're not, because Jewish people are lesser, which is obviously, inaccurate. Zionists, we definitely have to stop them from genociding Palestinians, but not every single individual Zionist is, but the rest of them are supporting it. But, there's countless wonderful Jewish people around the world, but yeah, it's just, like curiosity or noting, oh, that's what they are, and it can sound like singling out, but they really don't mean it that way. It's just, so yeah, really, really nicely done. They planted that seed a while back, because I'm not going to speak for everyone in the audience, but I certainly noticed every single time Herschel referred to Glenn's ethnicity, yeah, it was never bigotry. Let's see. Yeah, and just the end of the episode, Dale thought that Rick was gonna shoot Randall, so he leaves specifically so that he won't. Yeah, the he doesn't want to be party to that, so he leaves, and he ends up getting killed by a walker. And it's like, if he had just stayed nearby, he wouldn't have, it wouldn't have gone down like that. It's so sad. And another great practical effect, like very, very Romero, with the tearing the stomach open like that. Like, holy crap. Just, yeah. Somewhere, I cannot believe I'm blanking on his name. That one particular zombie from Day of the Dead is saluting. And let's see. Yeah, Rick explaining, Carl wanted to watch, so I just couldn't do it. Well, not being able to get your gun off. 1 in 3 males past a certain age, it's not unusual. Right, and also, I think it was Dale who pointed out, if we kill Randall, how are we any better than the 30 men? I don't know, you're better shots, better killing, I guess, although that might just be plot armor. And I really appreciate, like, I had no idea Dale was going to die this episode. They're doing such a good job of that. I didn't guess for Ed, Jim, Amy, I'm sorry, I forget her name, but T-Dog's partner. Like, I'm not sure that I would really say that I didn't, like, they kind of laid the groundwork for, I can't believe I'm blanking on his name now, the doctor, the CDC doctor. They did have him say, oh, I'm definitely going to die in 24 hours, so, it wasn't a huge surprise that he ended up dead. But I didn't see coming the self-destruct, yeah. Mother! But let's see, I think that does bring us very nicely to the very ending, and yeah, like, Rick, he's trying to finish off. And I really appreciate, Herschel does not give them any false hope. He's not going to make it, and it's like, oh, well, we can't carry him, well, you could perform surgery here. And it's like, Rick, he's not going to make it, and yeah, like, I mean, if I had to guess, I'm thinking several organs were probably what's the word, ruptured. Yeah, there's just, at some point, there's no way to save him. Even if the bleeding is mostly internal, and that is where the blood is supposed to be, just past a certain point, you can't do anything. And Rick is about to perform a mercy kill. He did kind of get worked up into the idea of shooting someone, no offense, and just he can't quite bring himself to do it. It's just, no matter how hard he tries to use his imagination, they're clearly not in a bar, so how is he supposed to shoot this, human, not walker? Right. I also really appreciate this thing of like, they talk about, oh, there might be 30 men. Like, we certainly didn't see 30. There were, let's see, how many were killed after, was it, there were 2 killed in the bar. There was at least 1 killed after. Were there 2 killed after? I forget, but yeah. And then, Randall with the leg, and then the 1 guy that left. And I do also appreciate there was 1 guy that left. So at the very least, he's still out there. And if he knows about Herschel, even him showing up alone, like, depending on what time of day it is and who's keeping watch, if, like, it's not impossible that he could, hurt, even kill at least 1 survivor before they were able to stop him. That already is, very, very scary thought. Let's see. Right, and yeah, at the end, Daryl, takes the gun from Rick, and there is this like thing of, yeah, Randall, Daryl is perhaps more hardened than Rick, so this, yeah, and essentially it closes on a POV shot of him being shot to death, and no music over the end credits, so we just sit with the bleakness of the situation. Yeah, and I'm so glad that Randall did survive the episode, because I'm so excited to see where else exactly they're going to go, because I really could see it going either way. Like, I could imagine that maybe we're gonna get episodes where he's somewhat part of Rick's survivor group, but I could also see, like, yeah, I could imagine they end up executing him later. Maybe he does escape, or some kind of, and I'm honestly not entirely sure. Like, now that they almost killed him, he might try to bring people back. But then on the other hand, they did also choose not to kill him, so that might be a point in favor of not, and we also don't know if he is the vengeful type, like, he might understand why he's been tortured and almost executed. Not approve of it, but comprehend.